What makes you feel very sure about certain things?
At each step, we had some hurdles, but we all worked together. All of a sudden, one day, we had it.
It's simplicity, but also it's abstraction and translation of data.
The thing was innovative and therefore, by definition, risky.
The real innovation of this course is just simple act of getting the students to work day in, day out, week in, week out with the real tools, the real data sets that they will be using in their careers.
It's actually helped me to change my teaching philosophy. These Jupyter Notebooks afford us this opportunity to be more interactive. I think this allows our students now to be more inquisitive, that they can download the data, they can then display the data, they can change the code, and they can redisplay it in a way in which their curiosity might want to say, well, what if I did this? What if I added this temperature or I changed this parameter? How would the output change? They never had that kind of ability before.
And calcium imaging is a technique which is rarely taught to undergraduates because the equipment is just way too expensive. I'm hopeful that students and faculty who use this scope will really run with it and bring a whole host of different types of curricular innovation to the project.
There must be a lot of people, a lot of young scientists without equipment to do very simple things just because the equipment is so expensive. And so there are a lot of minds out there that we could hopefully give new instrumentation for to create the science that we'd like to see everywhere.
You know, we can really change how undergraduate neuroscience is taught across the country if we can do this successfully.
So one of the things that Organon has really enabled us to do is to work through some of these anatomical structures with students and then hand them the tablet and say, explain this to me as though I'm a novice or as though I'm a patient. And in doing that practice on the part of the student helps to build their confidence in the material so that they go into their assessment and go beyond the course with the ability to talk coherently about the course content.
When campus closed very abruptly in March, we weren't in the lab any longer. And so we went from peaking in our Organon use to a sudden halt. Now going into our second semester online come spring 2021, we have sort of a backbone of course material to use. We can incorporate some of our work that we did with Organon when we were on campus.
One of the other great outcomes of the innovation project is that we've been able to write several research articles, and then collectively we've all written an essay together about common questions students have at the beginning of the class and how to address it. And it's pretty exciting because the essay includes 25 co-authors.
Some faculty also used observation data that we collected of their teaching practices to examine which class periods they wanted to revise in following years. Faculty in our group shared different ideas and adopted some of each other's strategies.
As an artist, as a creator, you can sort of evoke those feelings through the environments that you're designing. The larger question of so what does this new sort of environment mean? We were talking about atmospheres and we were talking about emotions, and the early stage of the pandemic, there were a lot of emotions. And, so it was a really, I think, wonderful place for us to be honest and sort of talk about them. And then also talk about how design can be an agent. They can act as agents and they can utilize the tools that they have to sort of represent their feelings, as well as sort of how they would want to share their feelings with the rest of the Cornell community.
With your imagination, you're capable to do so many things. And I think it's now even more the moment that we need to use our imagination and come up with what our future can be.
This is about making, and making requires a different kind of active learning or active participation. So how about we call them participants?
Sounds of everyday life became incorporated into their instruments. So one of the students used an electric toothbrush, another student used a drill, another used a drinking container. So these are sounds they were familiar with from everyday life, and they can now see in a new sense because they made some of these objects into instruments. And so I think it does change your orientation to your everyday life when you think that every sound you're hearing everyday life, hey, there's obviously a source of that sound. Let's think of that in an imaginative way. And could it be an instrument? And what would that look like? So I think, them going to their own homes, instead of being in that studio in Lincoln, actually expanded in a way the imagination for the class, the imaginary for the class.
I think we got to share our human side during this time period, which hasn't happened before.